This podcast is a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to find out more.
Put that thing back where it came from, or so help me. So help me, so help me, and cut.
Show me a move.
Good news, everyone.
Don't you even know dignity when you see it?
Onions have legs.
Welcome to 20th Century Boy. My name is Mike Big Fat Greek Wedding, and this is the inside of my mind. Welcome to the show. Of course, my name is Radio Mike. Start each show with a different name, generally with a Mike theme at the moment. This week went with Mike Big Fat Greek Wedding after the film My Big Fat Greek Wedding, which I've never seen. I've heard good things about it, just have never gotten round to it. Have you seen it? Let us know. Big show happening this week for a few reasons. Video viewers might already have an inkling as to why, because there is a visual thing going on here that will be referred to later on in the show. But welcome to 20th Century Boy, a podcast by me, Radio Mike, a writer and producer from here in Melbourne, Australia, just trying to make his way through life. Feeling a bit, I don't know how I'm feeling this week. Feeling a bit mixed. Might talk about that a bit later. But I did want to say, this podcast, 20th Century Boy, it's the conversations you wish you were having about the stuff that no one else cares about. That is the conceit of this show. And of course, you can always win the podcast. You win the podcast by doing a 360 on the spot right now, wherever you're listening to the podcast. And if you happen to see me in your vicinity, come up to me. You've won the podcast. Congratulations. Been running that for about 2 or 3 years. No one has yet won the podcast, so still waiting for someone to win. Was a good week last week, and of course, I guess, as part of something we are running this year, which is this bad boy, pull out the red carpet because it's Mike's big year of premieres. Okay, that was the wrong button. Sorry, guys.
Get ready to rock, because it's Mike's big year of live music
and events. Yeah, it's Mike's big year of live music and events, and a lot going on in that field over the last week or so, and this week as well. Now, last week, we, and by we I mean myself and various members of this show's Patreon and producer Pat, went to see the great man Weird Al Yankovic live at the Palais Theatre here in Melbourne. Lots happened that night alongside the concert itself. It was a very fun night. And if you're on the Patreon, patreon.com/RadioMike, jump on. You will hear a bit more about that night over on the Pat and Mike show with me and Pat, about something pretty serious that went down on the night, if that's a bit of a tease. The key words, and you might hear them dropped a lot in the Discord. If you're a member of the Discord, jump in. If you want, just message me if you want to be part of the Discord. Campbell Jones and Trevor Warren. Those are the key words. And also, another key phrase of the night, I hate people like you. So if you want to hear all about that side of the Weird Al concert, definitely jump on board the Patreon this week, patreon.com/RadioMike. Weird Al was a great night. It was actually like a deep cuts show. So he wasn't, he wasn't playing like his big hits. He was just playing like deep Weird Al cuts. And it was a really interesting chilled out show. Like they were him and the band were seated, and then he would speak between each song, almost like in a podcast kind of way, which was good. And we were all seated, and I have said this many, many times before, the best live gig, I just want to sit down at a live gig. I'm sorry, it has gotten to the point for me, all I want to do at a live concert is sit down. Again, I think I've said this before, that the first video clip I ever made for this podcast was from season 2, where I said this exact same thing. Gonna reiterate it here, not recycling content because it was 3 years ago, and that's the statute of limitations here. The ideal concert is me. My ideal concert is me sitting down in the front row in front of a stage, and the band just performs. and I don't have to stand up. I get there, and as soon as I sit down, the band comes out. There's no waiting 3 hours. There's no stupid opening act that I don't care about. It's just me. I sit down. The band starts playing. When they finish, I leave. That's it. I hate I love live music. Hate the process of live music. Hate standing around on your feet for hours and hours at a time. Hate being in a sweaty, crowded space. Okay? I'm sorry. I'm 28 years old. I've had enough of that. I did that in my late teens, early 20s. I'm sick of it. All I want now is to just sit down. And that's what Weird Al's show was. Sitting down at a live gig. It's amazing. We also had meet and greet tickets with Weird Al. So we got to meet him, get photos with him after. I put it up on my Instagram at radio.mike. Message the show anytime, by the way, for this one-sided conversation. You can contribute. radiomikepod@gmail.com or just DM me on Instagram at radio.mike. And I guess when we were lining up because what happened was you got to sort of line up to get something, to get a photo, and then you'd line up again to get something signed by Weird Al, and you'd get like 30 seconds to a minute to talk to him. And I was tossing up whether I ask him to record something for the show, like, hey, it's Weird Al Yankovic, and you're listening to Radio Mike's podcast, 20th Century Boy. But then I decided that was a bit wanky because he had just done this show, and like he was tired. It was like midnight by this point, so I felt kind of bad for him. And I also just didn't want him to be like, no, I'm not doing that, because then it would be really awkward. So I then just decided to ask him, and this is probably more wankery. I then decided to ask him if he likes the band Blink-182 and which song he would parody of theirs if he had to do one. I'll just play you the audio. Can I ask, do you like the band Blink-182?
I do.
And if you had to parody one of their songs, what would it be, do you think?
Gosh, I mean, a lot of their songs are kind of like, get humor in them anyway. I don't know. What do you think I should do?
I don't know. All the Small Things seems like a good choice.
Yeah, that's probably the one.
We'll hear it on the next album.
Okay.
Right, thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh my God, you can you can hear it in his voice. Like, he probably gets people asking him stupid questions like that all the time, and he's like, oh God. There's this great moment when Weird Al appears in The Simpsons, and like Homer goes, hey, did you get those parody songs I sent you? And Weird Al's like, yes, they were both as bad as each other. So I guess like Weird Al just gets people being like, hey, you should parody a song by Blink-182. And like that happens all the time, and I could just sense in his voice responding. Like he's like, yeah, I'm like, all the Small Things. He's like, yeah, that'd probably be the one. Like, what was he supposed to say? I don't know, but it was fun. He was very kind, and I apologize to Weird Al for saying that. On the topic of Mike's big year of live music and events, this week is a big one for that very thing, because on the day of recording, which is Tuesday, I usually record on Tuesdays, tonight with Keelan, friend of the show, will be going to the Broadway edition of Green Day's American Idiot. If you are on this feed, you will have seen on Monday of this week, a Mike Talks went up with Matt Dwyer. He is playing the lead role in this musical. And if you're not familiar, about maybe 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years ago, Green Day, the band, made a Broadway version of their music, of their album American Idiot. So they made a Broadway musical, taking all the songs from American Idiot, which was like a big conceptual album about post 9/11 America and being a young person in America under the Bush administration and dealing with all that. I won't talk too much about it because I talked about it a lot on that Mike Talks, which I highly recommend you go and listen to. But yeah, I've seen it before. But Matt Dwyer, my mate from work, is, starring in the lead role, so I wanted to see it again, and I'm really, really excited to see it because I think it's going to be a really good show, and I'll talk more about it next week. But also, Thursday this week, so on the day that this is released, I am going to a very special live music event. And I think that every millennial in the world, I can trigger you by just playing one thing. I think I can play one note and you will instantly know exactly what I'm talking about. Telling you now, if you were a millennial and if you were an emo punk kid in the 2000s, I'm going to play you one note, just one note, and I reckon you will instantly know exactly what I'm about to talk about. That's the note. I'll play it one more time. I'm going to see My Chemical Romance on Thursday, and I am so excited. Of course, that is the first note of My Chemical Romance's Welcome to the Black Parade. I am so excited for this. I think I've talked about My Chem on this podcast before, and it was when I was going to Download Festival in 2020 before it got cancelled from COVID, and this is the first My Chemical Romance show since, and I am so excited. Of course, long-term listeners of this show will know how much I love pop punk music, and if you're a fan of My Chemical Romance, you will know that they broke up around 2012, 2013, not 100% sure. They have recently gotten back together and they're playing like highlight shows. They haven't done really a new album for a very long time, but so keen to hear a bunch of My Chem's bangers, such as Teenagers. And, of course, one of my favourites from their last album, Danger Days, a song that's just called Na Na Na. Cannot wait for this concert. And I think, again, My Chemical Romance are really, I think, underrated in terms of their cultural significance to the 2000s and what they were able to achieve in their relatively short career as a band and what they did for the emo and pop punk genre generally, particularly in the mid-2000s with their album The Black Parade, which is a seminal album of that period that I think is very commonly and universally considered a critically successful album, a commercially successful album, and I think everything in that album just sort of adds up to it being a success. If you're unfamiliar, The Black Parade was this really highly stylized album which was conceptual. It dealt with a man who was dying of cancer and entering the Black Parade, and all of the songs are about death and dying and etc. In fact, there's an incredible song on that album called Cancer, which is just a beautiful song. And then not only was the music strong, but the branding was so strong. Like, I think from a marketing angle, everything about it worked really well. You had the cover of the album, which was just this little soldier skeleton kind of thing. And that's what the band was sort of dressed as in all of the imaging around the album, like music videos and stuff. So you had frontman Jared Way, and yeah, they were all in these skeleton suits with like eyeliner and makeup, and they looked really typical sort of emo in inverted commas, and performing this really angry, depressing sounding, like aggressive emo pop punk, like Famous Last Words and Teenagers and Welcome to the Black Parade and etc. These anthems, these pop punk anthems, these emo anthems, and I think the stylization and the visuals of all of it really resonated with kids and teenagers at the time. And I think you look at acts like My Chemical Romance and they are quite clearly echoing, particularly Gerard Way, echoing people like David Bowie. Like these performers who like became personas, you know, they became characters. It was all theatrical. You know, as much as it was about the music, it was about the visuals, it was about the theatrics. And they did it again to a lesser degree of success in their last album, Danger Days, where they were the Fabulous Killjoys, which were like these sort of, I don't know, bounty hunters or superhero kind of, you know, weirdly dressed kind of outlanders or whatever. And, you know, that was an even heavier conceptual album that was really fun to listen to as well. I think both of those albums are amazing, but The Black Parade in particular, I think, was a triumph of stylization meeting great music, meeting performers, and, you know, the right time for that as well. It was 2 years maybe after American Idiot. I would be very confident that that conceptual style of the American Idiot album, which was definitely a pinnacle of that genre, and you can see in that album, Billy Joe always wore the black shirt with the red tie, even on the tours and everything. There was a bit of theatricals going on there, but then My Chemical Romance just ran with that and made the Black Parade this conceptual album that was conceptual beyond the point of music. It was them embodying these characters, and I loved it, and I can't wait to see them live. This might be my only chance ever to see them live. So yeah, really, really excited for that. Okay, last week I talked a lot about AI and like AI. I played a few excerpts of like AI generated episodes of like the Joe Rogan Experience and everything, and I thought, oh, this is really interesting because, you know, you can just make an AI of someone's voice, and I decided last week that I was going to make an AI version of my own voice. And I started doing it on some random website, and it was taking a really long time. So then I got another app hoping it would go faster and made another one on that app. And that app actually made me record myself saying, "Hi, my name is Mike, and I agree to this AI voice being generated, and I understand it could be used to make me say things I didn't say." So you have to actually record a disclaimer. So there you go. I did that. Whatever. And neither of them were ready by the time that I recorded the podcast. So I had to give it a miss. In fact, like the whole thing is like you have to read. They give you a bunch of random sentences and you just have to read and read and read and read. And like they generate a voice for you from there. Now, only like yesterday did both of them finish. So it took a week for them to generate these voices. And now I have 2 AI voices of me. And I thought it was really interesting, and I wanted to sort of explain to you because one of them, so the second one I did was on this software that I downloaded. It's a really good software, and it generated it. But then because I'm using a free version of the software, it has a 1,000 word vocabulary, and it replaces words not in that 1,000 word limit to just gibberish. So it just says gibberish instead of actually saying the word. And for example, Mike isn't in the 1,000 words. So I'll get to that in a sec. The other one I've realized must be an American company, and they're working with like American voices. So when I put my voice in, it spat out like a version of me that sounds kind of American. Like it doesn't feel like it's built for accents other than American accents. So it's not sure how to interpret the way I say things. So it kind of sounds like a mix between American and like South African at times. So it's really weird. And for some reason, when I made that voice, I don't know why I did this, but I just put, it asks you like, whose voice is this? And I wasn't sure like if I wanted to put my real name because I used like a fake email address. So I just wrote in Pert, P-E-R-T. So now there's an AI voice of me called Radio Pert. And I guess I'd love to welcome Radio Pert to the show. And what I want to do, I want to do a competition here. I'm going to put it on the Insta story for this podcast at TCB Pod. And I'm going to say, which one do you think is the better AI voice? And that will become the official AI voice of the show. So first, I want to introduce Radio Pert to the show. Radio Pert, welcome to the show.
Hey Mike, it's Radio Pert here. Thanks for having me on the show. Really hoping I win the contest today.
See how it goes to like South African at the end there? Really hoping I'd win the contest today. Thanks, Radio Pert. Appreciate it. Now, this second one is the gibberish one. So please welcome to the show, guys, Jibba Mike. Jibba, everyone. I'm Jibba Mike. Really great to meet you all and looking forward to voting in the poll as to who is the better Jibba voice. I love how like it's like you have a 1,000 word vocabulary. I'm pretty sure the first word, it was supposed to say hi Mike, or hi everyone, and it said Jibba everyone. Jibba everyone. So hi is not in the 1,000 word limit. So there you go. You've got Radio Pert
Hey Mike, it's Radio Pert here.
and Jibba Mike. Jibba everyone. Okay. Now, I wanted to give you a little bit more than just that. So I asked them both to please give me their thoughts and opinions on the movie starring Frankie Muniz, Agent Cody Banks. So, Radio Pert, could you please go first?
Agent Cody Banks is one of my favorite movies. I've loved it since I was a kid, and I love Frankie Muniz in that movie, as well as Hilary Duff. I believe you like Hilary Duff too, Mike. Is that
do.
correct?
Yes.
But not just because she's stunning,
No.
but also just because she's genuinely just awesome.
Okay. Thank you, Radio Pert. Now, Jibba Mike, could you please give your thoughts on Agent Cody Banks? The thing about Agent Cody Banks is it's a classic movie that doesn't get the jabber it deserves. I mean, come on, who doesn't love Frankie Jibba as a secret agent? It's like Malcolm in the Middle meets Jibba Bond. Jibba Gold. I love how Frankie is in the 1,000 word vocabulary, but hi isn't. And I think you said Jibber in the middle or Jibba Bond. I think it was saying Malcolm in the Middle meets James Bond, and then it said Jibba Gold. I think it was trying to say pure gold. So who do you want to hear more of recurring on the show? Do you want to hear more of Radio Pert, or do you want to hear more of Jibba Mike?
Hey Mike, it's Radio Pert here.
Jibber everyone. I'm Jibber Mike. Really? Let me know. There's a poll on the TCB Pod Instagram at TCB Pod. Go and follow it. There's a bunch of memes and clips that go up there as well. So would love for you guys to chuck that a follow and vote on the poll, because I want to know. Jibber Mike or Radio Pert? Okay. One of the biggest stories of the week, of course, is all of the stuff that went down in the Oscars. Now, of course, it was really difficult to beat last year's Oscars, where we had one of the most famous moments of all time, and I'm sure it will go down in history as one of the biggest moments in Oscars history. Keep your wife's name out your fucking mouth. Will Smith to Chris Rock. I've talked about it enough. I'm not going to talk about it more. We all know that happened, and it was sort of like, going into this year, it was like, I think the thing about that, well, I'm talking about it now. I think the thing about the Will Smith Chris Rock slap was that no one could have possibly foreseen that. It was beyond the realm of everybody's imagination that could have possibly happened. So this year, when the Oscars were relatively normal, it kind of felt like a letdown, because I feel like we were all at the edge of our seats, almost wanting and hoping something to happen that could match the Will Smith Chris Rock slap, and it didn't. And I don't think that payoff that we got, like last year, just sitting there watching the Oscars and suddenly, bam, it's happened. And everyone in the world gets this, like, it's like a pokey machine, right? No one was expecting that. And it's like, bing, 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 bing. This is a payout. Who would have expected that? Didn't get that this year. And everyone was kind of wanting it. But I guess that's how those kind of feedback loops work. Like, that's how a pokey machine works. You know, every 100 tries, it doesn't go off. And then suddenly on try 101, bam, payout, jackpot. So it might take another 100 years to get something like that from Will Smith and Chris Rock again. Who knows? Jimmy Kimmel was the host this year, and he did refer to what happened last year in quite a humorous way.
If anyone in this theater commits an act of violence at any point during the show, you will be awarded the Oscar for Best Actor and permitted to give a 19-minute long speech.
That was cool, and a thing that happened sort of before the ceremony started that I wanted to talk about a little bit before getting into the ceremony and the awards itself was this big deal with Hugh Grant. Hugh Grant was being interviewed on the red carpet of the Oscars, and he's been criticized for being rude and not giving the interviewer anything to work with and just being a rude old man, I suppose. Now, I have watched this footage and I've listened to it a lot, and to be honest, I kind of disagree that he's being rude. I don't know who the person was that was asking him the questions, but to be honest, her questions were pretty stupid. Here's an example.
What's your favorite thing about coming to the Oscars?
It's fascinating. The whole of humanity is here. It's Vanity Fair.
I don't know what she was expecting him to say with that question. When I was 6 years old in grade 1 at school, a weatherman came to my school to talk, and we were all asked to prepare one question to ask him. And my question was, what's your favourite part about being a weatherman? Now, if I could come up with that question as a 6-year-old boy in 2001, why can this adult woman not come up with anything more creative or interesting? And I think Hugh Grant responds to the question the way like you would if a 6-year-old asked you that, because it's a 6-year-old's question. What's your favorite part about it? Getting dressed up. Like, what are you supposed to say? I don't know what he's supposed to say. And then she goes on and asks her, like, what are you looking forward to tonight? The whole event. Like, what? Seriously, what are you supposed to say in that point? I don't know. I didn't think Hugh Grant was being rude. I think he was just like, this is a... You can actually see him at the end, like, he makes, like, a weird face, which is always funny. I don't know why celebrities always make, like, faces when they know they're being filmed and they're going to be scrutinized. Well, I guess you can't. I guess it's just reflexive. You can't really control it. But just, like, if I was a celebrity, I'd just be sitting there all the time, just, like, stonewall face, not making any facial expressions about anything that happens, because I know it's going to get picked up. No matter what face I make, someone in the media is going to pick it up and try to analyze what I meant by it. But anyway, Hugh Grant, really interesting there. But couple things. So the actor whose name is Ke Huy Quan, I don't know if I've pronounced that correctly, and I apologize if I haven't. Ke Huy Quan, who appeared in Everything Everywhere All at Once, which also won the Best Picture. Sorry, I will talk about that in a sec. Ke Huy Quan did a speech because he won the Best Supporting Actor Oscar. And I gotta say, I love this guy. I absolutely love this guy. If you're not familiar, he is the little boy in Indiana Jones, and now he's grown up and he's... I guess when you appear in a role like that as a kid, you kind of like, not belittled, but like people just go, oh yeah, he was just that kid in Indiana Jones. Like that's sort of what your legacy becomes. And I think for him, because I don't know if he's been in anything major since, I should probably have looked that up or whatever, but for him to then go on and win this Oscar, clearly a huge deal for him. And I just wanted to play part of his speech because I genuinely just was so resoundingly touched by how much this clearly meant to him through his speech, which was so emotive, so poignant, and so just beautiful. Like the tone of his voice, the raw emotion here is enough to set you off. Here's him at the start of his speech.
My mom is 84 years old, and she's at home watching. Mom, I just won an Oscar.
I just think there's so much raw emotion there, and it's quite beautiful how important this moment is to him. He then goes on.
My journey started on a boat. I spent a year in a refugee camp. And somehow, I ended up here on Hollywood's biggest stage. They say stories like this only happen in the movies. I cannot believe it's happening to me. This is the American dream.
I really, really liked his speech. I thought it was very, just raw and emotional and truthful and true to himself, and was really stoked for him. And I think, his genuine excitement. I mean, even here in Australia, we have the Logies, which is obviously nothing like the Oscars. It's the TV awards sponsored by TV Week magazine. But people don't even seem like excited to win them, like when they win them. Whereas this guy, like, listen to this. Listen to all of this.
My mom is 84 years old, and she's at home watching. Mom, I just won an Oscar.
Really profound. I love that. Brendan Fraser took home Best Actor for his role in The Whale. I saw The Whale and I thought again, really profoundly good film. Extremely moving, and I don't know. Well, I talked about it on this. I just thought it was such a beautiful examination of the kind of person you don't really get to see on screen. And I thought Brendan Fraser's performance was just stunning in that movie. I thought everyone's performance in that movie was actually incredible. But of course, the starring moment was Everything Everywhere All at Once, winning the Best Picture Oscar, which I thought was well deserved. That movie was just something so unique in the independent movie kind of scope. Of course, ironically, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness came out around about the same time, which was sort of, and I feel like Everything Everywhere was like the antithesis of what that movie was, even though they had similar storylines in that they're both about traveling to alternate versions of the alternate universes, multiverses. But it felt like Everything Everywhere was done on a budget, and had more essence to it than what Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness did as a blockbuster Marvel Cinematic Universe film that had a bunch of money punched into it to try and make it a big success. And don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, because I love Marvel movies and I thought it was like pretty good. But when I saw Everything Everywhere All at Once, and then you're like, I think there's a lot of like, because there are so many movies that are just these blockbuster franchise movies, whether they're Marvel movies, Disney movies, whatever. And so many franchises, we talk about it a lot on this pod, so many franchises being resurrected, rebooted, all of the above, Ghostbusters, Transformers, there's about to be another one. It's really easy for studios to lean on those properties and those franchises to make blockbuster films. And admittedly, Top Gun Maverick was nominated for Best Picture. So, it's not like they're bad films. But then you see something like Everything Everywhere, and it's just such a unique film in so many ways. It's just got a beautiful message of like, surviving family trauma, coping with family trauma, and just the comedy of it all. It doesn't take itself seriously, looking into these other universes, some of which are like where you have sausages for fingers, and some are like where you're just a rock, and all of that kind of stuff, and just exploring that concept in so much more detail than what I think Doctor Strange did. And just a beautiful film with a beautiful message. And you look at all these franchise films, and I think a lot of people are like, there just isn't any original ideas in Hollywood anymore. But then you sort of like, well, there is. They're just not marketed to us. They're just not. They just don't have as big as a budget, so people don't hear about them as much as they hear about Marvel. I think it's just that. Like, even look at, was it last year's winner or the year before, Parasite, which was a South Korean film? One of the best movies I've ever seen in my life. Holistically deserved to win the Best Picture Oscar. Undoubtedly so. And you look at that, you look at an idea like that, and you're like, that's an original idea. That is just such a fantastic unpacking of Korean social classes and like the desperation of the poor and the greed of the rich. Such a great classic examination of those themes, but that film was incredible. And even looking at the Oscar awards for Best Picture for this year, aside from, it was kind of mixed. You've got Avatar: Way of the Water, of course, is nominated. You've got Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is an indie. You've got The Whale, which is, more on an indie. And then you've got Top Gun Maverick, Elvis, Tar, The Fablemans, Triangle of Sadness, The Banshees of Inisherin, Women Talking, All Quiet on the Western Front. Like, there's a mix there of, like, movies you probably haven't heard of if you're not, like, a big film buff. So, yeah, I totally think there's room for these movies. It's just a shame there's no budget for them to be marketed and to be shown to people. Because, you know, if you're a $1 billion studio like Marvel, you pump heaps of money into marketing and you get billboards and everything. And how can a movie like Everything Everywhere All at Once get that same level of publicity? Until it wins Best Picture, now everyone's going to see it. Everyone's going to see it now because now it's the biggest film in the world. And everyone's like, how did I not see this? I saw it when it came out in cinemas. So, yeah, I think if you haven't seen it, it's a fantastic movie and absolutely everybody should see it. Absolutely everybody. Okay. One thing that some of you have been messaging me about during the week, and I will give an update on. I can't give too much of an update, but the PlayStation 5 controller. I spoke last week about my PlayStation 5 controller, how it broke, and how I wanted a new controller. Did a direct call out to JB Hi-Fi EB Games and PlayStation themselves to see if they could send me a new controller. Now, here's my update. Somebody has reached out and has offered me support in the quest for a new controller. I can't say who just yet. Next week, though, I will reveal all. Now, the reason I can't say, well, I can say, I just don't want to say yet because I haven't received the goods. Once I receive the goods, and I will do a big thing about it. But yes, I can confirm that somebody has gotten back to us and somebody will, in all likelihood, be providing the goods for the PS5 controller. Keep that in mind. Now, don't think I've forgotten. I haven't forgotten. Jibba, everyone. Because it's time for us to do something that I promised I would do. Something that is 100% happening in 2023. Something that I have absolutely no regrets about. If you're watching the video version of this podcast, you will notice that I am wearing something that evokes a particular feeling. And that is the reason I'm wearing it is because 2023, not only is it Mike's big year of live music and events, 2023 is also,
after a big year in 2022, Mike is back for a bigger year of footy.
Gets in and takes
That's right, it's Mike's bigger year of footy. 2023 is officially Mike's bigger year of footy. I'm sitting here in my Essendon jersey. I am so excited about getting started in Mike's bigger year of footy. There is so much going on in the world of footy for me. And, this Sunday afternoon, Essendon takes on Hawthorn, their first match of the year. I am, of course, still a staunch Essendon supporter.
See the Bombers fly up to win the Premiership flag. Our boys who play this grand old game are always striving for glory and fame.
You know it. If you're a Bombers supporter, you know it. So, what does Mike's bigger year of footy involve? Because I'll be watching this week's Essendon game. I'll be watching most of the games. I'll be keeping tabs on what the Bombers are doing, what the Dons are doing. But also, I've made a commitment to go to at least 4 AFL games this year. So, if you want to go to an AFL game, let me know. I don't even know how to buy tickets. I couldn't tell you how to buy tickets to an AFL game. So, I'm I'm at a loss here. I guess you just buy them online. I don't know. I've never done it. I have been to the footy before. I have a running joke in my family with my cousin Dave, who people from this show will know, because we used to do the Dave and Mike show as a show within this show. And Dave, once my dad and Dave's mum, who were brother and sister, were like, hey, let's go watch Carlton versus Western Bulldogs. And me and Dave both go for Essendon. So my dad was like to me, hey, do you want to come to the footy with us? Dave wants to come, but he said he's only going to go if you go. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll go. And then Dave's mum said to him, hey, you should come to the footy. Michael said he's only going to come if you come. So then they blackmailed us into coming to a footy match, Carlton versus Western Bulldogs, maybe 2010, whenever that was, that we didn't even support any of the teams. I don't know. I don't know how we got into it. But yeah, I will be going to at least 4 matches of the AFL this year, and I'm very excited about it. And I will be following the AFL closely with regular updates on my footy prowess. You can also hear me on 2 Guys 1 Cup this year, doing a bit of footy related stuff there. That's about it for this week, so let's do this. The plug. I'm not sure if I mentioned this last week, but I was a guest on the Restricted Section podcast, which is an American Harry Potter podcast where we talked about, they do a chapter by chapter read through of Harry Potter. And I did the chapter from the Order of the Phoenix called Snape's Worst Memory, where they see Professor Snape, Harry sees Professor Snape being bullied by his dad and Sirius Black. Great chapter. Go and listen to that. There's a playlist on Spotify of podcasts I've been a guest on. So yeah. Wednesdays at 2:30, I'm on 3AW talking movies and TV, and we're going to be talking Oscars this week, so check that out as well. Of course, Harry Potter and the Boys is back with me and Sam Garlep. Go and listen to that. Here's a little bit. We don't just read my Harry Potter fanfiction, we also talk about things we find weird about the Harry Potter franchise. In the 3rd Harry Potter movie, Harry wants to be able to go to Hogsmeade, and Uncle Vernon won't sign it. He goes to Professor McGonagall, and he goes, but can you sign it for me? And Professor McGonagall goes, no, I'm not your parent or guardian, so I cannot do it. Don't you reckon a bit stiff from Professor McGonagall, who is fully aware that Harry has an abusive household?
100%. Like, she was there when he got dropped off. She expressed her misgivings.
She said to Dumbledore, these people are horrible people. There you go. Go and listen to that. And of course, there's a Mike Talks Up with Matt Dwyer. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this week, guys. Thank you so much for listening. My name's been Radio Mike. I will catch you on the Overflow if you're on the Patreon. Sorry, I forgot to plug patreon.com/Radio Mike for the Pat and Mike show and the Overflow. Big announcement on the Overflow this week over on Patreon. So jump on the Patreon now and get that. I would love your support. Thank you so much. My name's been Radio Mike. This has been The Inside of My Mind. This podcast was a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to check out all our other content, stay up to date at radio.mike on Instagram, and get in touch, radiomikepod@gmail.com.